All right.
What's going on, Ty?
Yo, finally on this side of the camera.
Yeah, see, this is the guy that's been editing the crispy looking videos.
Something like that. All right, so meet and recap. Let's kind of go through things. It's been a while since we've gotten together and done any sort of video. So let's talk. So the last time we did a video, it was about 6 weeks out. We did the mock meet.
Right.
So from that day, going all the way up towards the meet, how did training look? How did it go? How did everything feel?
So that was basically, mock meet, and then I reset my training in terms of the progressions I was using with my bench press. I was going strictly off Prilepin's chart. One day would be on the heavier end of it, one day would be the lighter end of it, and I progressed my way up. I reset that part, went back to where I started, and then I kept progressing. I was progressing my my slow eccentric bench on the heavy day, and inclines after that. And then on my lighter day, I was progressing heavy pin presses. So I kept progressing those as prescribed all the way up to the point where my slow eccentric bench presses became overload negative only bench presses, and that was kind of the peak for that. I peaked my pin press. I got up to 440 on that for a single, was my heaviest one of those. And I was peaking those two movements. The incline bench press, I was doing heavy, but I wasn't really progressing or peaking that. That was just some extra triceps work, and to get near that kind of failure range to hope for a little teensy bit of hypertrophy there at the end. So the incline bench press, I went by feel, worked up to a heavy single on the day or a heavy triple on the day, and then some back offsets. And then again, my bench, I just went with Prilepin's chart all the way through and treated it as a skill work instead of actually peaking it to build strength.
Cool. So that led us up to, kind of that week of the show, and that was kind of, did you do like a deload? Like, how did that work?
So we'll start 1 week out. My last, and which that would be, well, let's go backtrack. Let's go the Wednesday before the Saturday that was 1 week out. This this is the last day of my heaviest pin press. So I was on the lower end of Prilepin's chart with the percentages skill work. And then I worked up to that heavy single 440 on the pin press. That was the only lift in the whole peaking prep cycle that I was 50-50 on, am I gonna get this or not? I was very confident hitting every other lift I did throughout the entire prep. That one, I wasn't 100% sure I was gonna make it or not. But I did, so woohoo. And then a week out, I worked up to my opener 3 times. I brought out the kilo plates again, got a good feel for it. Just did my opener times 3. They all felt really good, really smooth. I was not at weight yet for that. We'll talk about that in a minute. But they all felt good. And then I did some incline bench after that. And this time I didn't go anywhere near failure on my incline, just some more motion is lotion type stuff, keep everything in the groove. And then the Wednesday before the meet, I came in and I just wanted one touch. They changed bench pads during the last week of my prep. So I got my week out session was the first time I got to touch on this bench pad. And then I wanted one more touch, which I'll take a lift, a few days out anyway on bench press. And it was especially pertinent to me since they put the new pad on that I wanted to get some more touches on there. So I worked up to 415 for just one single, and that's it. No accessories, no anything else. And just to get at it, one last heavy touch on the new bench, and then, rest and meet day.
Cool.
And then during the week, you see me in here every morning doing my cardio and stuff. I cut down my typical 30 to 45 minute cardio sessions down to about 15 to 20 minutes, just a little extra recovery in there.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, you talked about kind of that bench pad changing. talk to me about just kind of your thoughts on specificity in terms of equipment and stuff like that. How does that change? And does that change specifically for something like a bench as opposed to a squat, like bars, kilo plates, platforms, pads, all that stuff? Talk to me about that.
It changes. It's not a profound change, but I would say that most, and I'm going to use the term athlete here, y'all can call powerlifters athletes or not. Athletes are creatures of habit and very meticulous and particular on wanting to replicate the exact environment to the best abilities possible. So if you have access to whatever you're going to be specifically competing with, be it strongman or a powerlifting competition with specialty bars and kilo plates and stuff, using it is always going to be better, in my opinion, getting a feel for exactly what it's going to feel like. That said, it is not going to absolutely destroy your performance if you do not get to touch the exact pieces of equipment. It's something you can easily overthink. I went into meets where kilo plates were used, training only on pound plates, training on bent Texas bars that are 10 years old, and going and benching any Lico bar with kilo plates and still benching 500 pounds. It's not, again, it's something that if you can optimize it and you can get it as particular as possible, it's absolutely beneficial, but we're talking about like that little extra 1%. It's not something that's gonna make or break you unless you let it. And if that's your mentality, then you need to change your mentality.
Cool. Yeah. So, all right. So now we're at that week out time. Talk to me about the water cut. Talk to me about the weight manipulation.
Yeah. So this was a lot of the reason I did the meet. I wanted to do a water cut. I've never done one before. I intend on getting back into coaching. So it's something I wanted to have in my toolbox for both myself to be able to use one day if needed, and something I can help other people with. So there's a couple videos on my channel. I'm sure I'm going to gloss over some details here, and Ty's going to have to chop this video down a lot. So check out those two videos. But basically, I started, Saturdays and Sundays I eat big anyway because I train big on these days. So you could almost say I started water loading Saturday, but not with intent. It was just kind of my normal thing. Sunday I started the water load and sodium load. So 3 gallons of water. Three measured gallons of water, and then I had some other cups of water here and there. So there's a little more than 3 gallons of water, and I absolutely blasted all my food that day with all the fucking salt. I didn't measure it. I just, it was a lot more sodium than I normally take in to get the sodium load, water load started, get everything retained, have your body expecting these things. And then kind of Monday through Wednesday was pretty similar with my food. I cut out almost all sodium. I had a little bit of sodium. My main staple meal during the water cut was unseasoned ground beef with cream of rice and just the faintest hint of beef stock, so it had a little bit of flavor and went down easy. It was rough. And Greek yogurt, plain non-fat Greek yogurt. Those were basically my two staple foods. No fiber, almost no sodium, very little carbs on the day. Obviously these foods have carbs in them, but I was not eating big quantities of them. So cutting carbs, getting fiber completely gone, getting sodium completely gone. I took some Miralax Tuesday morning and Wednesday morning to help clear my bowels, to get everything possible out. That's why the no fiber too. I know fiber does help with your digestive system, but it takes a long time to break down and it sits in your system for a while. So we wanted to eliminate that as well. 3 gallons of water Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursday, I only had 1 liter of water and I had 1 energy drink, and both of those were consumed before 9 a.m. We had to unfortunately put my dog down that day as well. So that, I don't even like talking about these in the same light, because obviously losing your pet is way bigger than powerlifting a cut, but it happened during this, so it's kind of relevant. Obviously crying over my pet, there's more salt water being lost. I was getting cramps, in the veterinarian's office, having to adjust how I was sitting, because at that point, I pissed a lot of water out. we had cut out sodium. Sodium retains the water. You can actually dehydrate yourself just drinking too much water and not intaking any food or sodium because you won't retain it, which is kind of how a water cut works. So that sucked, obviously. That day, I had woke up that morning, I was 214, which I took the water cut way deeper than 220 because I wanted to take it deep to see how it would be. I didn't need to water cut to get to 220. I consulted with a friend of mine, and I had it in my head that this would be the right thing to do, but I just, sometimes you need that reassurance. And I have a friend with a PhD who's water cut. He's the lightest man to ever squat 1,000 pounds on the platform, Derek Wilcox. He works for Renaissance Periodization. He's put out articles on water cutting, etc. So I asked him, I said, Derek, when you get down to crunch time, the night before your weigh-ins, if you're under whatever weight you want to be or whatever, the only weight you can actually put on is the volume of whatever you're intaking. Am I correct or not? He said, yeah, you're correct in that assumption. Because, there's not enough time for calories in, calories out. It's just the sheer volume. You can weigh whatever you're going to eat. And that's the weight that can potentially go on you. So I was thinking in my head potato chips. I was trying to think of the most calorically dense, sodium-laden, carb-laden thing I could think of. So that way in the morning when I rehydrated, it would be in my system ready to soak up, all the carbs and electrolytes and water and everything I'm putting back in. And I asked Derek, I said, what do you think about potato chips? And he said, what about rice cakes and jam? And I was like, that kind of makes sense too. Rice cakes are very light. Like a whole big pack, the 2 sleeves of rice cakes is 4.5 ounces. So that's almost no weight going on you. You're hungry and depleted feeling anyway. So that's like a godsend to think I can eat all that food and not even a half a pound is gonna get put on me. And then I got an 18-ounce jar of jam. And again, super calorically dense. Now the 18 ounces is a little over a pound, but I had wiggle room here. There wasn't as much sodium in the rice cakes as I thought there would be, so I put salt on the jam after I put the jam on the rice cakes. And I ate, the whole thing of rice cakes, the whole thing of jam with salt. And it's great. The first 2 or 3 rice cakes initially, you're like, oh, fucking eating. I was so hungry, but you're thirsty too. And then you're consuming carbs and sodium, and you ain't got no water in your system. And so it was kind of a weird dichotomy there. But anyway, I woke up the next morning at 212. So I floated off a couple more pounds that night. Potentially I could have been even, 210-ish if I didn't eat that. But I wanted to eat that as part of the experiment. I went in wanting to be able to have something like that for the next morning. Weighed in at 212 and a half officially for meet day. And I had a pre-made concoction. I put some thought into it, and then I took some of what I had on hand. So it was 1/4 part unsweetened cranberry juice. I would recommend using actual, like the cranberry cocktail, but this is just what I had on hand. It was 1/2 part Pedialyte, 1/4 part water, 2 teaspoons of salt. I did measure this time. And then I took my bottle of honey and just squeezed the shit out of it for like 10 seconds probably. So there's a lot of carbs, sodium, electrolytes, what I want to get back in my system. And I sipped on that, on my way back home from weigh-ins, and then proceeded to eat all the carbs and sodium in sight and drink all the water, of course, to rehydrate. So I weighed in at 212 and a half. That day, near the end of the day, I saw as much as 232 on my scale at home. And the next morning, I woke up weighing 228.
Shit.
Yeah, so I think I got the refeed, rehydrate part down pretty well.
For sure. So, you kind of talked about your pet and things like that during this prep and right at the last second of this show, or this meet, strongman. But yeah, kind of go into the effects that out of competition things can have, that being so close to the meet, and kind of how did you go about something like that going into a competition.
Right. And this is why, and again, I've made videos on this, why powerlifters, we absolutely separate meet PRs from gym PRs and do not look at them the same, because you don't get to dictate your circumstances as much. You sign up for a meet months in advance and you have to perform that day, regardless of what's going on outside, or you can pull out of the meet, either or. You come in on an average day and you want to hit a PR and you're not feeling it, well, you just throw it away, and next time you're feeling better, you can come in and do it. So that's why we differentiate that. Losing a pet's rough, man. We had, his name was Luke Hang. We had him since '09. He was estimated between 3 and 6 years old when we adopted him. He was around 20 years old. He lived a good long life. We kind of knew a month or two ago that it was going to be sooner than later, but the last couple weeks, like, he deteriorated very rapidly, and it wouldn't be fair to him or us to put it off any longer. So it kind of happened, when it happened. You got to do your best to compartmentalize, and a powerlifting meet, especially a local meet, like, it's not that serious. If it would have been a family member that died, and pets are different than human family members, that's going to piss some of y'all off. I'm not sorry. I would have pulled out, if my brother died or my mom died or something like that. Again, it still hurt me emotionally. Losing a pet sucks, but you got to kind of compartmentalize it. It affects your sleep. It affects what you may or may not be able to eat. My wife was in shambles. She was extremely close, like, he was her shadow. So you have to do your best to compartmentalize and reduce outside stressors as much as possible. We're all humans. We all live real lives. This is a hobby for 99.9% of us. So that's a decision you got to make. You kind of, like I said, just compartmentalize it, grieve when it's time to grieve, kind of, flip that switch when the switch needs to be flipped. And then if you feel like you didn't grieve enough, you can obviously go back and grieve for more. My wife's actually going to pick up his ashes and stuff today. We got him cremated and got a nice little box with a placard on it and stuff with his name and everything. So, and it is one of those things too. I wake up the next day and you look for him in his normal spot that he's at in the morning, and he's not there. And come around the corner, every time I would cook bacon or something, he'd be sitting right there in the kitchen. That's, me and him didn't bond often, but when we did, it was usually over bacon. So, cooking bacon and him not being there, wagging his tail, waiting for a piece, rolling over and doing his tricks. But yeah. In terms of competition and, probably professional life and things as well, compartmentalizing things sometimes seems, what's the word I'm looking for? Emotionless, heartless. But sometimes it can be a good thing. That's just what you got to do, and go back and grieve and give it that thought and that feel as you need to, as the people around you need to, and know when it's time to get back at it, because life does go on, that you got to press on.
So let's, before we get into the attempts, let's kind of just talk about the elephant in the room before people, see the numbers on the screen and they don't really make a lot of sense. So kind of go into that.
Okay, yeah. So at the meet, I thought I was attempting 185, then 195, then 200. I actually ended up attempting 190, 200, then 205. Had no plans to attempt 200 and 205 in the same day. It was going to be one or the other. If I felt bad, I would do 200. If I felt good, I would do 205. But there was an error in the computer with one of the lifters. We were using a 55-pound bulldog bar for bench. I'd never used one before, but there was one lifter there who couldn't physically bench a 55-pound bar. It was her first meet, older lady. So she had a 45-pound bar, and when they put the attempts in the computer, just by chance, it happened to, be on her when they were doing it. And so the computer still had 45-pound bar in it. And, if you've never been to a powerlifting meet, the computers show what plates to load on it for the spotters and loaders. And So by chance, it ended up being left on her, and all the attempts were loaded as if it was a 45-pound bar instead of a 55-pound bar. So we all ended up attempting, 5 kilos heavier than what we thought we were.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so, just so everyone knows, we can count,
Yeah.
but things were just a little off. So, so let's go into lift one. Let's go with attempt one, the opener.
Yep. So I called for 185. It's 407 pounds. I wanted to open conservatively. I was doing the water cut. I didn't know how my body was going to respond to the rehydrating and refeeding. So I wanted to open conservative, something that I knew on a bad day, I could do with my eyes closed. Warm-ups felt normal, a little, the slightest bit sluggish. I don't know, you can still hear I'm a little stuffed up. Kids get sick, they get their parents sick. So that with the water cut, a little sluggish, but still normal-ish. My opener, it moved well. You'll see on camera, you'll be like, a lot of people are like, oh, this is a speed rep. But it felt heavier than it looked. So I was always gonna call 195 on my second, regardless of how it felt. But yeah, attempt one, went smooth, looked good on camera, but definitely felt heavier than it looked.
Gotcha. And then
because it was heavier than advertised. It was actually 190.
Yeah. So, all right. So we hit that first opener. Didn't feel amazing.
Right.
What then goes into your mindset going to attempt two? I mean, you talked about that you already had your attempts kind of picked out.
Right.
But does that change? Does that change a mindset, or does that change numbers? How does that work?
My second attempt on this day was never going to change. Hell-bent on double whatever my weigh-in was, which 192 and a half would have been like 424 and a decimal, but the decimals, it would have been like 0.1 pounds under double body weight, so I couldn't do that because y'all would flame me on social media. No, that's actually double body weight, freaky D. Even though you can't squat that weight. But my second was always going to be 185, regardless of how my opener felt. Usually, typically for me, I've got my firsts and seconds planned out. Unless something goes catastrophically wrong, there's not going to be any adjustments there. I'm pretty good at planning my attempts anyway. Most everybody should be able to make that happen. Sometimes circumstances can change and you gotta adjust on the fly. But yeah, I immediately got up and went over to the judges table and called 195 because that's what I was always going to call.
Gotcha. Yep, and then kind of go into that 195. Tell me about it.
So, a little bit of backstory here. They did the bench only flight separate, which is the only federation I've ever known to do this. Instead of just letting you guys go naturally within the order of all the lifters, they separated out the bench only flight. So there was 9 of us, and there was geared guys, and with these geared guys and the bungee shirts, I think one of them was opening around 900 pounds. There was a few over 600-700 pounds. So that takes a lot of time for the spotters and loaders. And this meet in particular, every geared bench only guy bombed. So not only are they loading 900 pounds, they're having to pick it up off the face savers every time, and then strip it down back into the 300s for the raw guy starting. So it takes a long time. So we're talking about 20 minutes plus between attempts. This is something I've never experienced. You usually count on about 1 minute per lifter per attempt. Maybe a little bit of change for changing the weights, but that even doesn't usually take too long if everybody's raw or if everybody's geared. So that was weird, being in your own head for 20 minutes, waiting between attempts. Your first attempt felt kind of heavy anyway. So I came out here for my second, which I thought was 195. I hit it, but there was definitely a little struggle through my sticking point. It's hard to see on camera. Again, it's another one that looks pretty good. But definitely did not feel nearly as good as it looked, and is the heaviest 429 has ever felt in my life. It wasn't actually 429, it was 441, 200 kilos. But in my head, it was 429, and it felt ridiculously heavy. And I was like, man, this water cut really sapped me, and my kid got me sick, and holy shit. So I, again, immediately just go to the judges' table, call for 200. That was my conservative call of the day. I could have called 197.5 to maybe give myself a better chance. But 197.5 is a dumb number. Who calls 197.5? So I called 200, and I knew my third was going to be a crapshoot. I felt 50-50 on it, that if I got everything perfectly right, that I could, and if I was like a millimeter off, then maybe not. So it was going to be a crapshoot. But that's the fun about these days, that third attempt.
Yeah. All right, so going into 10-3.
Again, another 20 minutes in my head, and this time, really get deep in my head, because damn, that 429 was heavy. So I come out here, get a little bit fired up for this one, even more so than the first two, because trying to tap into that adrenaline, because I know this one's a 50-50. Unrack it. It doesn't feel impossible. A lot of times you can unrack the weight, and sometimes like, damn, I'm not going to get this shit. Sometimes oh, this is going to be easy, I'm going to crush it. But again, this was 50-50. It was either or, so it was going to be fun. Thankfully, the IPA, the rule book reads, when the bar touches your chest under control, you get a press command. So we were getting fast press commands, like the rule book read. So I knew that in the back of my head from my previous two attempts, that at the very least, I'd get it. It wasn't going to sit on my chest for a long time, so I'd have a lot of stretch reflex. And I got it, good fight, up to my sticking point. If I'm going to fail, other than the weight just being absolutely too heavy, that's typically where I fail, is near the top, run out of gas. And that's what happened. I held it there for a little bit, and I knew once that momentum stopped, that wall, I just couldn't do it. So I disappointed, missing 200. I've never missed a 200 kilo bench press in my life. Anytime I've ever attempted 200, 440, it's never been a miss. So that was kind of depressing, but again, I knew the water cut, a little bit under the weather. 212 pounds. I've never attempted 200 kilos at 212 pounds body weight. So I justified it in my head. I still did my double body weight thing. Thanked all the spotters and loaders and the judges. Always, if you compete, pay your respects to those people. They're out here volunteering. A lot of times they're not getting paid, or if they are getting paid, it's in pizza, which sounds great, but putting in 12 hours of work for a few slices of pizza is hard work. They're doing it for the love of the sport. But yeah, so I was happy I hit my double body weight, but disappointed in missing that third at 200. But it was actually 205, and 451 being a 50-50 crapshoot on a day I didn't feel so hot makes me feel a whole lot better than 441 being a 50-50 crapshoot.
Yeah, so...
but I didn't get that feel better until Tuesday morning after.
Yeah. So, my last question is, what were the overall takeaways from this whole experience, and then what's next?
So, I'm glad I did the water cut. I'm glad I took it deeper than I needed to. That is a tool I'll have forever now. Either for myself to use, to help other people use it. That was great. Benching double body weight was fun. I've always been an absolute strength guy. I still value that more than body weight stuff, but it is a fun little marker to hit. I've benched 500 plus every meet I've done since December of 2016. Opening at 407 was kind of weird. Knowing I'm not going to bench 500 was weird. But having that double body weight marker on the old resume, I can play with you twinks now. I think if Alec on Curie sees this far, we're twink bros now, bro. But yeah, that was fun. So it was a cool overall experience. Competed in a new federation, benched on a new bench pad, benched on a new bar I've never benched on before. As a hobbyist, I would suggest getting these experiences, going to different feds, seeing what it's like. If you're a drug tested lifter and you want to compare yourself to the best, there's the USAPL or the Powerlifting America IPF route. Those are the two places you need to be. But if you're just a hobbyist, experience all the experiences, lift among all the lifters, and get a feel for all these different bars and slightly different move sets and stuff. You might find one you like more than others, and again, you're a hobbyist, do what you like and have fun. As far as me personally, it's CrossFit season, baby. We're going full CrossFit for the next probably month or two. Emphasis on power output and conditioning. Diet-wise, maintaining maybe a slight little bulk, very, very slight. There is a meet in October, which I've got the free entry fee for, and it's going to be here again, so convenience home gym. I'd like to do another full power meet. I'd like to do another meet in knee wraps. I've not done one in wraps in a long time. So, as far as competing, that's probably what's going to happen next. And yeah, that's about it.
All right, cool. Well, anything else you want to say before we wrap this thing up?
Stay natty, kiddos.
All right, guys. I guess I can let you do your. I'll let you do the outro. It's your video.
Like, share, subscribe, or don't. It's not going to bother me either way. Look for a big change here in the next month and a half. Big change. Peace.